Welcome to this episode of Project Rebuild. And today we're especially going to be covering licensing as far as your hymns, the songs that you use, and all the different aspects of that. And so excited to have Nancy Erdman here. She's a seasoned veteran of music ministry. Started out at Our Lady of Częstochowa on Clinton Street here in Buffalo, and has a lot of experience under her belt. So excited to have you.
Thank you. Glad to help.
So kind of what I'm thinking is maybe we can start with what does the existing process look like as far as, hymnals. So when do you buy hymnals? Is that a yearly thing, or are there different options?
There are different options depending on the publisher. So GIA Music, they have a hymnal that you can purchase. It's hardcover. It's like an investment. So once you purchase it, it's in your benches. I don't know exactly how it works pricing. It's probably a little cheaper the more you buy per hymnal, but they can be up to probably $30 a hymnal to put in your benches. Whereas
so the advantage of that is that you get to keep it, right? Because I think with some of the other hymnals, I think after a year you have to scrap it.
Yes,
right?
So for OCP, that's one of those that is an annual repurchase. So here at St. Greg's, that's what we do. We repurchase once a year the hymnals and put them out in the benches, and they're good for just that 1 year. Cycle A right now is out in the benches. Depending on how many you need, those can run anywhere from like I think ours were like $5 and change per book, up to $19 per book. Like if you only need a few, you're going to pay, of course, more per book. So, and those are soft cover. They're not durable beyond the year, and we even have like a vinyl cover that we insert ours into. So they.
And I remember that sometimes you'll just get like a handful of new ones every single year just to replace the old ones that are starting to get tattered.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
But those are about $4 a piece, so we try to take care of what we have.
Right.
Yeah.
So something like OCP or Breaking Bread, right? It includes not just music, but it includes other things in there as well.
Yes, there's the readings for Sundays, and you can also have the option. They have a Breaking Bread with daily readings as well, which is what we have in our benches right now. Actually, it's not in our benches, it's in the crying room because we had to take them out because of COVID.
You should see the crying room. We took all of the hymnals out of the benches, and they're just lined up in the crying room.
Piles.
It's a lot. It's really something.
Yeah. So there's probably 1,000 books back there. But yeah. So there's also from OCP a thinner seasonal that's not for a full year. It's like for a season. So like they just had a book for Lent, Easter, up through Pentecost, and then that one ends. And now they're going to have one for basically ordinary time, probably through, I would guess, the beginning of Advent. So they could probably come out 3 times a year with a missalette, and it's just a thin missalette.
Okay.
Some of the parishes that I've been in, they use a combination of that thin missalette for the readings, and then they just have like a music book separate. So
they'll have both, rather.
They'll have both, but the music that they have separate could be a hardcover book like from GIA, or a softcover, less expensive version of OCP's, like their music issue. So, yeah. So OCP has lots of options.
Okay.
And GIA does too, but.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So every year or at certain intervals, you're just replenishing your books and getting rid of the other ones.
Yes.
And what are exactly your, what are you capable of doing with that? Can you do something like a reprint? Let's say if you wanted to include the lyrics in the bulletin.
You can't.
Okay.
You don't have rights to reprint anything in those books unless you've purchased a license for that purpose. So.
How would you do that?
All right. So onelicense.net is where you can get a lot of the things that are already in those hymnals, GIA, OCP, those publishers, World Library, and many other ones that are already covered. So you would purchase that license. It's a reprint license. There's also a podcast license. So if you have any kind of streaming, so lots of places right now are starting to stream their masses.
So you're saying like an audio stream or like a live stream or something?
A live stream,
Okay.
yes. So it's video
Okay.
and audio. So there's a separate license just for that.
So if you had your hymnals
Mm-hmm.
and you wanted to introduce live streaming, then you would need this podcast license?
Not necessarily, because you would only need it if you were putting the words on the screen.
Oh, okay.
So if you don't have words published anywhere, you don't need a license.
So if it's just audio
Mhm.
coming through your live stream,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
then you can just have the hymnals in your pews.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
nice. So that podcast license, is that something you would use if you were starting to implement? Like in your live stream actually having the words up?
Yes. If you had the words printed somehow in your live stream, like on a YouTube live video,
Okay,
then you'd need the license. And,
Okay.
and that's just the podcast only piece.
okay,
So if you were to have that podcast only piece for the video purposes, but then if you have people in church and you want to reprint for the people, like a worship aid or bulletin,
Mhm.
you'd need a separate license called a copyright license that would actually give you the reprint on those things that are covered by that license.
okay. I think I remember seeing something in licensing about you can get permissions or these licenses for either an entire year or for specific events, I think. Even,
Yes,
right?
but if you do events, it's more expensive. If you have like 3 or 4 events in a year, you're better off getting the yearly license,
Okay,
because it can cost you, like if you do that 4 times in a year, it's gonna cost almost as much as an actual license for the year.
Oh, wow.
So you might as well just get the yearly license.
okay.
Yeah,
Very nice.
much more cost effective.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know that here at St. Greg's, both of us came into the job and they had screens up already. And that just introduced a whole different dimension, and I know that we had
For
to learn a
music
couple
ministry?
things. So we're
Yeah.
still learning,
Yes.
honestly.
Yes.
But I guess what were some of the things we had to be attentive to as far as licensing, and showing the lyrics on the screens?
So, at first, we were only putting up the hymnal number and the title of the hymn
Okay.
for the hymns themselves.
So then it's pretty much just like having a glorified digital, I guess, what do you call those?
Program?
Well, just like those bulletin boards you'll see with the
Oh,
numbers.
Yes,
You know,
yes,
you'll see them right in the front
Yeah,
of the
that's
church
right.
sometimes.
yes. Some
Yeah.
churches just have put the numbers on a board and that's it.
Okay. So with that situation, there's probably not much that's different.
No.
Okay.
No. So at first, because we didn't have the right licenses,
Uh-huh.
we couldn't put much more up there. I mean, we could put up words for the prayers and the responses,
Mm-hmm.
but we couldn't put up, and because those responses, those are, I'm trying to think, it's ICEL, ICEL. And like our Roman Missal has permission from ICEL
Okay.
to reprint the prayers and stuff.
Huh.
So we didn't have to worry about permissions for those.
Mm-hmm. Then I remember when we were initially starting out, there are some songs that are just public domain as well.
Yes, and so those public domain songs were great because we didn't need any, you don't have to worry about licenses. You can put those up, put the words up, put notes up if you want, put notes in a bulletin or a worship aid.
Mhm.
And that is one of the suggestions that was given by, I forget if it was the USCCB or if it was someplace else when I was reading that, they suggested keep things simple and just use public domain songs so that
Really?
you have rights to do things,
Okay.
and familiar
Yeah.
hymns and stuff.
I remember there were sometimes you'd be looking through the Breaking Bread hymnal and picking the repertoire, and then if you look at the bottom, it'll show, I guess, who has the rights to that particular song.
Mhm.
And you were showing me before how to see if it was a public domain song.
Yeah.
Because it'll show it there.
Right.
So it's pretty much anything that's like over 50 years or something.
It's
along
100
those
years,
lines.
I think.
100 years?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah. Like if we have something that St. Thomas Aquinas wrote, we have rights.
All right. Well, that's good.
That's basically the rule of thumb.
And then we're good to go. No problems showing it up on the screen. So that's cool.
Yes.
I guess before going into the different licenses that are available through something like One License, let's just talk about these companies in general, if that's...
The publishers?
Mm-hmm, the publishers, exactly.
Okay.
So I guess One License has multiple different hymnals under it. I guess that's the way I understand it, is like you'll have OCP, Breaking Bread, Ritual Song. All of these are kind of Spirit and Song under it, right?
Well, OCP is the publisher. Spirit and Song is a subdivision of OCP.
Okay.
All right. So when you say Breaking Bread, see, in Breaking Bread, there are songs by OCP. They've gotten permission from GIA to publish some of their things. They've gotten permission from even like CCLI to purchase or to publish. I'm trying to think. In Christ Alone, I forget the composer, Getty. He's not available. His work, Matt Maher too. His work is not available on. He's not published by OCP. He's published someplace else. I can't remember who it is, but so you'd have to get a license from CCLI to
Okay.
publish some of their stuff.
All right.
Yeah, but what's nice about the hymnals is they've gotten all those permissions, so they can have all these different publishers in there that maybe they had to purchase permission from just one small publisher to put in, a couple songs that they knew that would be popular,
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because like OCP itself, like How Great Thou Art, OCP does not have, that's not OCP's song. So they can't put it in their Breaking Bread unless they've gotten permission from that publisher, I forget who it is, but to actually print it. So they had to get permission to make their booklet too.
Okay.
That's why they charge so much. I mean, they have to cover their permissions as well as their printing
Right.
costs.
Okay. So I guess in something like Breaking Bread, they deal with their own set of permissions, and you'll see that lined
Mhm.
up. But then what is the function of One License in view of all of that?
So One License covers a certain set of publishers. CCLI covers different publishers. So CCLI doesn't cover OCP, GIA, World Library. Those are under One License.
Okay.
So they just have a whole set of different publishers that they cover.
Hmm.
So,
Okay. So I guess now going back to trying to show the lyrics on the screens of things that are published by OCP or Breaking Bread and all of that.
okay.
How would you proceed in getting what type of license in order to do that?
So if we wanted to print those on the screen, you'd
Mhm.
need one license,
Okay.
as long as they're an OCP or Spirit and Song publication.
Okay.
One license would cover that. So onelicense.net, you can go online. You have two options under One License. You can do podcast or streaming license, or you can do a reprint license.
Okay.
So the streaming license, you would need if you're doing YouTube Live.
Okay.
The reprint license you would need if you're doing worship aids or bulletins, and you're reprinting in the worship aid or the bulletin, a
Right.
paper.
Okay. Is that reprint one, does that also cover, I guess, let's say the projection screen?
No,
No.
it doesn't.
That's under, what does the projection screen fall
Well,
under?
it does cover the projection screen if we weren't streaming.
Okay, so
but
if it were just in church.
If it were just in church, if it were not live streamed, then yes, it would. The reprint license would cover your screens as well, because it
Okay.
doesn't matter if it's paper or screens or digital.
Okay.
So So,
All right.
yeah.
So you got your live stream, and then license, and then you've got your reprint license.
Mhm.
Okay. Very nice. Do you know if it works similarly for CCLI?
CCLI does have that too. They have more than those two licenses. We've never really needed them. Like they have a rehearsal license of some sort.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with that. And it's something about helping your musicians practice with a track,
Okay.
you know.
Yeah.
But for our purposes, we have the copyright license and the streaming license.
Mhm.
The copyright license, and they're all based on the size of your average weekend's attendance. So not the attendance that you have at like your biggest mass for each weekend, but your average attendance over the whole weekend.
Okay.
So,
I know that you can buy, like, let's say, even a personal subscription. So on a personal level, you could have an account with One License or CCLI,
Mhm.
and you'll get access to a lot just as a musician personally. To lots of times lead sheets, so you'll be able to see your notes.
that's a third license actually
Mm.
under CCLI.
Okay.
That doesn't matter how big your congregation is or how many musicians you're giving it to.
Okay.
That is just so you have access. It's called Song Select
Mhm.
on CCLI, and it's just so that you can, get yourself like you said, your lead sheets or your
Yeah.
vocal sheets or whatever you need.
Mhm. So I think if you're starting to project lyrics and use this music in church, you need something beyond that, and that's why we're talking about this average weekly attendance, right?
Right.
Uh-huh.
Right. So average weekly attendance will affect your copyright license and your streaming license, but not your Song Select. Your Song Select is, I think it's $198 a year, just to get your music, for your musicians.
Okay.
So we have the premium one. And
Mhm.
I know that's $198.
And then there's like a breakdown of different prices depending on your congregation size.
Exactly.
Right?
And that's for the copyright and the streaming licenses.
Okay. So how did we figure out kind of which bracket we fit under?
I had to do some research back probably 3 years ago. We actually did a count of how many people were in church for a few weekends, and I just took the average from those counts, and for us it turned out to be about 4,400. Was it 4,400 in a weekend or weekly attendance? It's average weekly attendance. So we have 7 masses a weekend.
Right.
So, so for CCLI, their brackets are 3,000 to 49.99. So that's the bracket we fall into for CCLI.
Okay.
And for One License, it's a little broader. It was like 2,200 to 5,000. For the category.
Okay.
That we fell into. So.
Yeah. So during something like Christmas, your masses are a lot bigger. You're dealing with a lot more people. But you don't have to worry about that in this case.
No, because you're just going for average. And so you're not going to adjust your category. Because there's going to be times, like when there's a Bills game in town, we might not get as many people in church or whatever it is,
It's like that 12:30 mass or that 4:30 mass.
Mm-hmm. Right.
There just won't be people all of a sudden.
Right.
Where do they go?
Right. Right. So, that's why, it's average.
Okay.
So you
Very
don't
nice.
have to worry about how high it gets or how low it gets.
Mhm.
You just need average.
Okay. Very nice. Yeah. So, trying to think. Is there anything that you see that's important that we haven't really covered? Things that we needed to be attentive to?
Yeah, I mean, it took me a while to realize that the license that we had did not include streaming for CCLI. So we've corrected it, but just to be aware of all these different kinds of licenses within one, like CCLI license. You know, just make sure you got your bases covered. That's it.
Right.
You know, it turns out before you and I started here, our CCLI license was really only used by youth ministry. It wasn't used in the church. It wasn't used for masses. So they were in a small category because they were just doing, you know, their programming for youth ministry. And
Right. I think it was 0 to 49, something.
actually,
like
it was up to 99.
that. Up to 99.
But I mean, we put ours at 49 because that might have been the attendance that we had when we purchased it for our average attendance for our program, you
Right.
know, for a weekend program. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Huh.
So we've changed that now so that we can cover, and we're covered in the church as well
Right.
for a typical weekend.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, with COVID.
Yes.
Moving forward with people starting to come into the church, but not being able to actually touch the hymnals.
Mm-hmm.
How are we able to respond to that as far as using our screens and all of that? I mean, how does all that work?
So our screens are going to be more important because people won't have books unless they bring their own.
Okay.
You know, but they won't be provided for them anymore.
Uh-huh.
At least for the foreseeable time.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're just gonna have to make sure that we have everything on the screens. I don't think we will go as far as putting the readings, the text of the readings on the screens. That'll have to be just you just listen to that, or you have your own, you know, your own personal Bible or book
Mhm.
that you're following.
Right.
So.
And you mentioned before also reprinting the lyrics maybe in the bulletin.
Yes, so if you reprint them in the bulletin, you're gonna need reprint licenses. You're gonna
Okay.
need one license or CCLI to give you your permission to do that.
Okay. So the idea being that if they take a bulletin, they touch it, they take it home.
They have to take it home, yes, they're one-time use,
Okay.
yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that's why there won't be hymnals.
Mm.
And actually, in our own diocese, the bishop has said we discourage singing during Mass, just because when you sing, your breath goes further than when you just speak
Yeah.
more than 6 feet. So,
Well,
yeah, I mean, and it's kind of hard to sing through a mask.
mhm.
I haven't actually tried it yet, but I can't imagine it's going to be muffled.
Sometimes I think of a pop filter, you know, you use that in the studio all the time.
Okay.
And so sometimes you'll even get them that have 2 layers on it, and it's just almost like this felt. Well, you sing through that on purpose so that you don't hear the pops of your P's, like puh, puh,
Oh.
because that'll like blow and it'll sound like wind.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Something like that might be an option. But
Okay.
So if there's a parish, let's say, that doesn't have an existing projection system in the
Mhm.
church, and let's say they start out simple and maybe they introduce something like a projector or a TV screen just so that people can see the lyrics and I guess participate in that way, what would be some of the first things they would be doing?
You need to get the license for streaming, or wait, if they're not streaming, so they're just you just need to get a reprint license. You don't need the streaming license.
Okay.
If you're not broadcasting it,
Mm-hmm.
you just need a reprint license. So even whether it's a digital screen or a piece of paper and a bulletin or a worship aid, paper worship aid, you need a copyright license.
Yeah. And would that be super expensive, like assuming that they're still using hymnals and paying for all of that?
It's more expensive to do a reprint than it is to do the podcast or streaming license. Like,
Okay.
so both one license and CCLI are, the cost for the reprint is at least twice as much as the cost of the streaming portion.
Okay.
Like, you know, like 30% of we've got both licenses. 30% of our cost is for streaming, 70% of our cost is for reprint.
All right, so maybe one final question is, if we were to entertain the idea, what would it look like if you were not to include hymnals? And if you're capable, just use screens and maybe your reprint license, how would that pan out, you think?
So you'd have to get a reprint license for your average weekly attendance. Um, and that's not just like your biggest mass or your smallest mass. But you'd have to, what your average attendance is each weekend total. And then you'd have to, if you're gonna use screens, you'd have to prepare the screens so that you have the lyrics on the screens for all the songs. If you were going to do it like a paper worship aid or, well, let's just say a paper worship aid for now, you'd have to, not just set it all up like on the computer, but you'd have to then copy and fold and pass those out somehow, whether you put them all on the benches or you hand them out at the door. Under COVID restrictions, they'd have to be a one-time use, so once you touch it, it's yours,
Okay.
kind of thing.
Uh-huh. So
Actually,
so I guess you would make this worship aid, and then you could make it available in different formats, like
yes,
as paper that you could hand out to people attending Mass.
yes,
You could also probably put it on your website if you wanted to. You could
yes,
potentially put it on an app or something. So
Right.
cover multiple venues.
right, and you would need a reprint license to do all that.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you had the reprint license, yeah.
So is something like that feasible? I mean, would that be effective, you think?
I think the screens, some digital is the easiest, less labor intensive.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing, another option though, when we were talking earlier about bulletins, like your actual parish bulletin, cause the bulletin company does all the processing, the folding, the printing. You don't have to worry about having enough paper. Depending on your capacity for your bulletin, if you can fit all your stuff in there, then you don't have to worry about folding you just have to prepare and submit to the bulletin company
Right.
for their work to do.
And so then you'd be dealing just with the typical, deadlines, either the Tuesday before, or the 2 Tuesdays before.
Yeah.
You gotta
right.
have your bulletin prepared and ready to print.
Right, so you'd have to have all your music ready to go,
Uh-huh.
too.
And that way it would be just available to people. They'd be able to take it to Mass and participate.
Right,
So that could work really well.
yes.
So for something like, I guess, not just your weekends, but then all of a sudden if you don't have a hymnal, what about something like funerals? How would that
Oh.
dynamic change?
Yeah, well, some churches I've been at, they will print a worship aid for the funeral, to hand out to people, a paper aid. And yeah, you still need a license,
Mhm.
Your general license will cover that though, if
Okay.
you've got it for the weekends already. Or, put it on screens and not use the paper.
Mm.
Cause it takes time, obviously, for people to, you need someone to hand out the worship aids, or you need someone to just fold them. Cause it's usually not gonna fit on just one plain sheet of paper,
Mhm.
kind of thing, so digital is definitely an easier way to go.
Okay. And I guess for something like a funeral, at least as far as I can think, is you do typically have, I guess you could say, a library that
Mhm.
those, the members of the family of the deceased, they'll pick from a certain selection of songs.
Right.
So I guess you would just have a library of projections ready, and then you
Yes.
just kind of fill it in.
Yes, same thing with the paper worship aid though.
Mhm.
The places where I've been where they have a paper worship aid even for funerals, they have a library on their computer and they just pull from those files.
Hmm.
So kind of same idea when they
Okay.
prepare it, and just have to make it fit,
Yeah.
in your whatever space you're limited to.
So you'd have your weekend masses, you'd have your funerals, weddings. I don't know if you could do something similar. Are there typically?
A lot of times the couple themselves will choose whether or not they want to do a program. There's usually not,
Okay.
people generally don't sing at weddings, like to sing 4 hymns. We don't do that.
Okay.
Unless, I don't know. My daughter's wedding, we did sing
Mhm.
at the wedding, but it was basically the opening song and the responses and that kind of thing.
Okay.
And then there was another song, I'm trying to think what else she picked. we got permission to print, so we put them in our program. But it wasn't a 2-page program, it was like an 8-page program.
Okay.
You know, because you need the space for that kind of
Okay.
stuff, so.
But I guess that's something the couple is already taking into account, whether they want a program, and if they're creating it, they're gonna do a beautiful job with it.
And a lot of times what they're gonna wanna do is they're just gonna put, you know, who are the bridesmaids and groomsmen and, you know, the family names and, you know, the people there, and like, okay, this is what we're doing, you know, our processional song is, and that, you know, it just lists things. That's generally what they do. And they wouldn't need reprint licenses for that or anything like that. So, pretty simple. Just to
Alright.
list titles, you can do that.
Huh.
Yeah, if you're just listing titles, you can reprint anything.
Mhm.
You just can't print the lyrics.
Right. Thank you so much, Nancy. This has been wonderful. The chance to talk about, especially licensing, a topic that's I didn't understand well, and I think there might be some others in the same boat too.
It's complicated,
So
yeah.
It is complicated.
Definitely.
Yeah, but you know, we learn and we try our best as we go.
That's right.
So, yeah, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. God bless you, Michael.
God bless you.
Thank you.